place making. But critically and increasingly, we deal with a phenomena called place breaking, which is really quite tragic. Increasingly, we see people across the planet, including, as many of our guests spoke about today, in Nigeria, being disconnected from their homes and their places, being dislocated from the areas that are meaningful to them in their lives. And this notion of place breaking is something that we as architects need to tackle. So I've done a lot of work in the country of Mongolia. My doctoral dissertation was focusing on Mongolia. As was mentioned by Patience, I'm a member of the Union of Mongolian Architects. So my work, both in my doctoral degree and ongoing, has to do with the nomadic people of Mongolia, the pastoral nomads, who've lived on the Asian steppe in a remarkably free and sustainable way for thousands of years. They have no fences. They have gentle and remarkable lifestyles. They leave no imprint whatsoever on their earth. However, all that shifts when these nomads migrate to the city. We see an increase in crime, escalating disease, disruption of life, and depression on the mental side. I also do work with homelessness in Japan. As a gaijin or a foreigner, I have license to maneuver in ways that the Japanese people simply can't because of societal norms. So this is an image of a subway station, Ikebukuro, in Tokyo. And the fellow on the right is a department store worker bringing out appliance boxes at the end of the day. And this is a warm environment, and these boxes are being brought out. And my students often ask, why would they bring out boxes when the environment is already warm? And the boxes are to set up a wall to shelter the homeless men as they sleep at night. And it's not about warmth, it's not about thermal comfort, it's about dignity, and it's about compassion. And again, something I would argue we as architects have to be very mindful of. These are homeless houses on the Sumida River. Each of these blue boxes represents a life shattered and an effort to try and regain some form of dignity. Another home, although it might not look like a home in a traditional sense, but it brings pride and belonging despite worlds being turned upside down. As architect, the plight and problems of people, whether at home or on the other side of the globe, are within our sphere of responsibility and ethical performance. They're neither appropriate, it's neither appropriate nor ethical to turn a blind eye to this. Again, often my architecture students say, why should I worry about a homeless man in Tokyo or someone suffering depression in Mongolia? But increasingly, it's all of our responsibility as we walk together. Design, of course, is a tremendous vehicle for us. It's a potent tool to transform and to act. Design can uplift. Design can heal. Design can stimulate. It can accommodate. It can communicate. It can inspire. It can rejuvenate. And vitally, it can regenerate. This is City Hall in Melbourne. However, and this matters, our systems need balancing in order for design and for architects to achieve optimal impact. Right now, I argue, across the world, not only in the West, but north, south, east, west, science and technology are preferenced above other ways and vital ways of thinking and knowing. For example, art, humanities, and spirituality. And much of my work is pushing to equalize these 5 components. So briefly, what stands in our way of getting forward, of moving ahead? And that goes for architects with us today and politicians, as well as for the students. What are the obstacles? This slide is called It's Not My Job, and this is in Indiana in the Midwest of the United States. And what you see in the foreground is a dead possum, a type of rodent. This slide underscores that there's one department called the roadkill department, which is supposed to remove an animal when it gets struck by a car. Another road crew came along, which is the road line painting department. And when they got to that dead animal, rather than being sensible and using common sense to remove it, they simply painted lines on top. And when asked why, they said, "It's not my job to remove dead animals. It's my job to paint lines." And it's this endemic fragmentation that in many ways daunts all of us in our efforts to create a better world. It's about bureaucratization, paperwork, and red tape that get in the way of us moving forward in a meaningful and swift way. It's about isolation, loneliness, abandonment. It's about ignorance. This is a guard tower between the former East and West Germany. It's about indifference, apathy, and turning away from what we know is the right thing to do. This is in an area of Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia, in one of the slums where I work, and this is the public realm that you're looking at right now. But to be optimistic, and I think all of us need to be optimistic, and the Jinkai initiative has shown us what optimism can do and the potential we can release. On the optimistic side, we can and we must find empowerment through opportunities, through technology, and not just building technology, but of course, computer technology. On the left, the Hong Kong's Richard Rogers project, the bank building, and on the right-hand side, a Shenzhen mansion in Guangdong, China. Creativity, in this case, Kisho Kurokawa's National Art Museum in Roppongi in Tokyo. The opportunities of culture, of honoring tradition while respecting history. And again, we saw that in a number of the projects in that competition. Of research, of ensuring we're operating and making things based on evidence. Of integration, which is of course the converse of fragmentation. And of celebration, the ability for all of us to find joy in the world around us. Given the intensely complicated forces and factors in our world, and it's global, it's not just about one place or another, we need to find new ways of seeing, thinking, and acting. We need new models that can guide us on this uncertain journey. We need methods to help us find routes out of disorder and disaster and crisis and catastrophe. We live in a world where uncertainty is our certainty. This is, of course, one framework, a triple bottom line, crafted by John Elkington, which, as all of us know, the nexus of these three bubbles is really where we want to be, balancing the social realm or equity, the physical or the environment, and the economic or the financial side of things. I expand that model to also incorporate cultural and spiritual dimensions because I guess as an architect and a psychologist, I see those as vital dimensions of our world that need to be acknowledged and promoted. So this is the cover of a journal. The artwork on the front is my wife's. It's a landscape painting she did. And this issue dealt with an article I wrote called Culture, Context, and the Pursuit of Sustainability, Contemplating Problems, Parameters, and Possibilities in an Increasingly Complex World. And it was really in 2009 about trying to make sense of a world that even at that time was in many ways unraveling in unpredicted ways. So that article grew out of my work in Mongolia, looking at the slums, or what are called the Gur districts of Ulaanbaatar, basically trying to juggle all of these forces and narrow agendas, which left to their own can't solve problems. But nowadays, if embraced in a holistic and interdisciplinary way, can realize tremendous change. So this is one example of the slums in Mongolia. This is, again, the public realm where people just take their trash and throw it out when it gets severe enough, when it smells enough, when it's enough of a health risk, they pour gasoline on it and set it afire. So the trash in the public realm. Why? because no one assumes responsibility, because it's not my problem, it's not my fault. And that kind of thinking is leading us into serious conditions around the globe. So I argue it's time for dramatic overhaul and bold reconsideration. And I should add, just pertaining to this slide, I had all of the jury members participate in my urbanism class last week, talking about Africa and the case of Nigeria and Lagos. And it was remarkable to hear those strong thinkers talking about the possibility to rethink the way that we build cities and dwell in place. So a rethinking of city building and a rethinking of building design. This is the model that I developed, and it's one of just many models that are out there that begin to talk about trying to heal our world and doing so in a way that is much more integrative than piecemeal and fragmented. It's not about being definitive, but it's about being provocative. It's not about being prescriptive, but it's about being performative. So the key features are really those 4 quadrants: agility, fitness, diversity, and delight. And beyond that lie a whole realm of issues that we as architects or planners or politicians really need to be addressing. And again, not in separate narrow agendas, but together in a systemic way. Agility is about environments that can mutate and morph based on user need, that can be flexible and changeable as circumstances shift. Fitness is about resonance with purpose. This is a shot in Bern, Switzerland. It's about an elevation of users and making people the center of our enterprise. It's about diversity, about providing options and proffering choice. It's about acknowledging pluralism and celebrating our differences rather than using them against us. It's about delight, lifting our spirits and stirring our souls. So how do we fuel change? How do we deal with acceleration in the evolution or revolution that we need to embrace? And this is especially the case for young people who really are going to take the reins of getting us out of this series of catastrophes. It's about education, of course, and the students and the educators that are with us today know that. William Butler Yeats said that education isn't the filling of a pail, it's the lighting of a fire. It's about communication. And if power comes through knowledge, then that knowledge and that power have to be shared. It can't be kept. It's about wisdom, which to my mind is the coupling of head and heart. It's about resonance, which is about belonging and acceptance. It's about resolve, which is innovation and ingenuity, thinking in ways unexpected. So to conclude, let me say that our challenges are many, and indeed they're profound, but our potential is deep and our limits are endless. To the students and to the architects, to the politicians and practitioners with us, and that watch this after the fact, my message is following your heart, because the heart will tell you the direction to go. To dare to imagine that you can and must make a difference, and then having the wherewithal to act in order to do so. I often tell my students that being mediocre is easy, but being exceptional, that's the hard work. That's the heavy lifting. And critically, we have to take risks. There's high stakes. We need to take risks for positive change to be realized in our world. The right to hope is the most powerful human motivation I know. As a quote from a very wise individual, His Highness the Aga, head of the Ismaili Muslim community globally. So thank you very much for your time and all your efforts.
Thank you very much for that amazing, amazing presentation, Professor Sinclair. Most of all, I think it was informational, it was educational, it was inspiring. And I do agree with you